Hey, do you want to see a magic trick? Welcome to Beyond Super League, your weekly roundup of all things Betfred Championship, and this is episode 1. My name is Rob. Sometimes I go by Up the Chemics. I'm a rugby league fan. I'm a Winners Vikings fan, but most importantly, for the purpose of this video, I'm a Championship fan, a division that I think, frankly, gets precious little coverage and nowhere near the recognition that it deserves. From great on-field action to the behind-the-scenes superstars, players and staff who keep clubs afloat even in such uncertain times, to the fans who, even without the bright lights of Super League, turn up every single week to cheer on their team. No video ref, no golden point, no captain's challenge, just blood and guts, edge of your seat, sing at the top of your lungs rugby league. So every week, we're going to be here chatting about it. Rounding up games, keeping you up to date with all the latest news, and hopefully having a chat with some of the people that make this game tick. We are brand new, so don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. Get yourself first through the turnstiles every single week when the content drops. This is the good stuff. Let's get started with a roundup from round 20 last weekend. Right then, let's get straight in to round 20's fixtures. There was just the one game on the Saturday as the Winners Vikings hosted Barrow Raiders. An important game for both sides in many ways. Disappointing results in previous weeks by their own respective high standards. Newcastle had gone to Barrow last week and picked up a victory, whilst Widnes had come up short against top-class opposition in games recently when they played Oldham and Doncaster. Both sides falling away a little bit from the top three as a result. So this game would either get Barrow closer to Newcastle and Oldham just behind London, or it would pull Widnes right back up into the mix. I was at this one. It was a cagey affair, but it was a great game of rugby league. Widnes' middles stood up really well to that big Barrow pack. And when they got their opportunities in the first half, they absolutely took them. Barrow did answer back in the second, though, bringing the game to within a score, and then a Jack Owen sin bin threatened to give Barrow the opportunity that they wanted. But with 10 minutes to go, a big hit on Nathan Connell led to a chaotic melee, both teams ending up with just 11 men on the pitch as Widnes took advantage of those gaps. They ran in a few tries to make the score look a bit more comfortable. 24-8 was your final score in this one. The win catapults Widnes above Barrow into fourth place. Into Sunday's games, and it was a massive one for Whitehaven. They faced Goole at home with the possibility of a top 10 place on offer. And the home side carried on their fine form recently. 46-16 the score in this one. That gets them into a playoff spot. Ellison Holgate in great form on Sunday. He ran it from dummy half. Whilst Kieran Walker continues to ask serious questions as to whether he should be in consideration for the league's player of the season. The Midlands Hurricanes were looking to solidify their place in the playoffs. They were taking on Rochdale, a side who've been struggling a little bit lately, and the Hurricanes did not take any prisoners. 42-4 was the final score. They've opened up a 5-point gap with the chasing pack. They're up to 8th. Questions were possibly being asked around what would happen with new signing James Woodburn-Hall after Lewis Else's return into the halves. He missed out altogether last week, but was played at fullback this weekend in place of Todd Horner. And both he and Else justified the selection choice by Mark Dunning, each grabbing 2 tries. Whilst the Midlands Hurricanes are climbing the table in terms of points, they're not managing to climb it in terms of position, and that's because those directly above them continue to win, including Sheffield, who played Workington. A relatively comfortable 38-12 victory. Eagles looking a lot more assured than that close call win against Salford last weekend. Kai Morgan continuing his fine form from last week. He's looking a real player this season, but it was George Griffin who will take the headlines, a hat-trick for the big forward. Doncaster also kept themselves in front of the Midlands Hurricanes in those top playoff places. They dispatched Swinton Lions with ease, 52-0 the final score. A hat-trick from James Glover amongst the highlights for the Dons. but disappointment for the Lions to not even register a score at home. They really missed Geordie Gibson, who was absent in the halves. It was Hunslet's 5,000th game of rugby league, a day for celebration at the South Leeds Stadium. I was there, but unfortunately, Oldham were around to spoil it. The high-flying Ruffians extended their unbeaten run to 15 games with an emphatic 60-16 victory. Morgan Smith was the standout for me. Absolute quality. He's really stepped into that role. If any Oldham fans had a fear that losing Riley Dean to Super League would leave a gap, then Smith has allayed those completely. That partnership in the halves with Josh Drinkwater is really purring at the moment. For me, they are the most likely to give London a challenge in the playoffs and at the grand final. Speaking of London, another big win for the champions in waiting. 62-4. They beat Salford at the Corpac. Still unbeaten in the league. Still every chance of going invincible. They've got big plans for Super League in 2027. Whether or not that happens is still to be decided. However, one thing is all but certain, and that's that they have dominated the Championship in 2026. Tries from all over for London, including 4 from Robert Mathias. We talked a little bit earlier about the excitement of Whitehaven getting into the top 10, but somebody has to drop out to make room for them, and that was Dewsbury. The Rams played Halifax Panthers at home, and they took a lead into halftime. But Halifax had some more in the tank. They turned it round, finishing the game strongly. Big comeback win for them, 36-16 the final score. Can we just take a minute to talk about Ben Will? He's come out of nowhere this season for the Panthers. Moved from the wing to fullback for this game. He was just as good and still managed to score tries. 2 for him today keeps him at, I believe it's a try-a-game average, with several of those games being from the bench. Definitely one to keep your eye on for the rest of the season. That just about does it for round 20. A little bit of movement at the top, of course, with Whitehaven getting into the playoff spots, Midlands Hurricanes solidifying their place, but otherwise, not a lot of change in the league table. In fact, out of the teams in the bottom 10, it was only Halifax who picked up 2 points this weekend, but they remain right down at the bottom because, of course, their point reduction after going into liquidation. It's a real shame with Halifax, actually, because had they not had that point reduction, they would be right up there in the playoff spots. Let's get on to the latest news from around the league with some exciting transfer bits in there as well. Transfer news then. Let's get started with a big one, even though it's not for 2026, but looking ahead to 2027. Salford RLFC announced ahead of their game at London on Sunday the signing of veteran halfback Mark Sneyd. Sneyd will be entering his 3rd spell at the club. He is, of course, an academy product. This is a great coup for Salford. He will elevate the quality of that side from that key position, even at 35 years old. And I think it's a get for the division as well. A player of Sneyd's calibre to be saying that he wants to finish his career playing in the Championship. That's something we should all be celebrating and looking forward to watching him play next year. I think it's also worth pointing out, though, that it was a brilliant advertising campaign from Salford. I made a video about it separately on some of my other socials. The way they teased it about a week before, the presentation was really professional. They did a great job of building a little bit of intrigue and mystique around it. And then that big payoff at 10-3 on Sunday, announcing that he was joining and presenting him to the crowd. Fair play to Ryan Briley and well done to Salford. We need to see more of that in the Championship. Present our product in a professional manner and people will receive it in a professional way. Good job. A few bits of news concerning Dewsbury. First of all, a couple of retentions. Jacob Bateman has turned his loan move from Bradford into a permanent one for next year, while Danny Addy will be at the club as well. He signed a contract extension. However, Valutane Bentley has left the club. It was announced a couple of days ago that he'd been released from his contract, and then we found out today that he's being picked up by Oldham. Oldham clearly strengthening for the playoff run-in. They did something similar last week. Finlay Irwin leaving Swinton Lions and then being announced for the club a couple of days thereafter. There were also a couple of transfers last week that you might have missed, players who were brought in for the round 20 fixtures. Ellis Gillam's come back to Barrow on a season-long loan deal from Toulouse. He went straight into the side for the game against Widnes. Liam Sutcliffe's also come into the Championship following his return from, I think it's an injury layoff. It's a short-term deal, 14 days initially for Halifax, but you could see it roll on. He, of course, was part of that win against Dewsbury. Speaking of the Halifax Panthers, one player they'll be without in 2027 is Alfie Johnson. The outside back will sign for the Castleford Tigers in Super League. I'm not shocked at this one, to be completely honest. He's a heck of a talent, and Castleford have got a real player on the hands. I was a little bit surprised, if I'm being honest, that when he was released by Warrington, that he made the permanent move down into the Championship. He does feel like a Super League quality player to me, but Halifax got the benefit of that this season. He is with them until the end of the campaign as well, and then he gets his chance to prove himself at Super League level again. And keeping the theme of linking the segments, Castleford Tigers have loaned Alfie Horwell to Newcastle Thunder until the end of the season. He was in the squad for that big victory over the North Wales Crusaders. Let's move into some other news. Crusaders. Look at how I'm linking these guys. Definitely not doing it on purpose, I promise. North Wales Crusaders have parted company with head coach Mark Brady. Only in charge for 50 days. He's been at the helm through some really difficult results, 100 plus put on them more than once in games. Some reports suggesting that he was sacked. I don't know the ins and outs of it, and it's not really my place to comment, but it's a tough old gig down at Crusaders at the moment. I'm not sure who could have got any different results, so it'll be interesting to see who they bring in and whether we find out any more about what actually happened in them going their separate ways. Bit of sad news we found out today, recording on Tuesday, and it comes out of the Halifax Panthers. Owen McCarron's season looks to be over. Ongoing complications with concussions. Some things bigger than rugby league. He will be missed by the Panthers. He's a good player, but most importantly, wishing him all the best and hoping he recovers well. And last but not least, London are ramping up their campaign to get into Super League in 2027. They've announced intentions to be part of the Las Vegas trip in 2028. They clearly are trying to grease the wheels a little bit to show that they've got the backing, the funding, the will, the desire to be a big player in Super League, not just to take part. Of course, they've got to get there first, but they're making the right noises. That'll do it for your news this week. Let's decide on who we think is our team of the week. Easy one for me, this. It's Whitehaven RLFC. An absolutely incredible run for the Cumbrian club and well deserving of that top 10 place that they finally burst into for the first time this season. Just remember with Whitehaven that they only won 2 out of their first 15 games in the league this year. It was looking like it was going to be another difficult campaign. They've really turned it around, including big, perhaps unexpected wins like the one against the Midlands Hurricanes. What's great about Whitehaven as well is that they seem like they're building a young, local, hungry squad of players. There's some real standout performers in there, and they're all of an age where they're approaching their prime rugby league years. The likes of Ellison Holgate, Ethan Bickerdike, Jake Pearce, all delivering in big games when it matters. But I want to talk a little bit about Kieran Walker. What a season this young man is having. 23 years old, and only Jimmy Meadows of high-flying, high-scoring London Broncos has more points than him at this point in the year. And this is with him playing for a team that are 10th in the league. And I think that he is a key component into how Whitehaven play. Their game management just seems to be absolutely on point. They know when to take 2 points. They know when it's time to kick for a penalty rather than go for the try line. And you can only do that when you've got a confident and competent goal kicker. And that's exactly what Walker is. If you look back through the stats week on week, he scores probably 2 or 3 kicks from penalties rather than conversions. I said it before, and you might think it was a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but it wasn't. If you're thinking relatively speaking in terms of the impact that a player has had on a team, you've got to be considering him for player of the season. Whitehaven are really building something special. They're doing a lot around the community as well. They had games on at the Autos Rec for the World Cup, trying to get people engaged, involved and wanting to watch rugby league. It's a tough test up in an isolated part of the country, and they deserve real credit for what they're doing. I really want to see Whitehaven kick on and find their way into a playoff spot. They absolutely deserve it after this run of form, and they will be looking at it thinking that it's possible. If you look at the run of fixtures from now until the end of the season, they are winnable, with the exception of that round 25 away trip to Barrow. They'll be looking at it thinking, we fancy our chances against anybody. And one game to mark in your diary is that round 24 match at the Autos Rec at home to Dewsbury, the team they've just leapfrogged into the playoff spots. That could well be the game that solidifies top 10 for them. So there you go, my team of the week, Whitehaven RLFC. We're almost out of time. Let's get to On the Hooter. Just a few reflections for me for this first On the Hooter, the first final thoughts of this Beyond Super League series. And that's just to ask the question to you guys as to whether the kind of content that you've been watching over the last 15 to 20 minutes or so is what you would like to see. If you're a fan of Championship Rugby League or a fan of a Super League or any other club with just a casual interest in what the second tier is all about, is what we've been doing during this episode something that you are interested in and that you'd like to see more of? If it is, let me know. If it's not, let me know what you'd like to see instead, additionally, differently. I'm hoping that as we move through the next few weeks, we'll be getting some chats in with some players, staff members, the people who make the championship tick. But I want to make this community something that feels really special as we continue to try to shine a light on a division that gets precious little attention. Thank you so much for watching. If you've watched along through this entire first episode, don't forget to subscribe, follow, like, share, all that good stuff, and we will see you next week for more Beyond Super League.
Hey, do you want to see a magic trick?